About $46 billion have been added to the immigration reform bill, specifically addressing border security. And the reason that was added to the Senate's version, by the way, of the immigration reform bill is to try to get some more Republican support for it. And it looks at this point likely that bipartisan support will lead to the passage of the immigration reform bill with the added $46 billion in the Senate. Now, in the House, it's a little bit more difficult because there it's controlled by Republicans and they have monetary incentives to be even crazier than the Senate Republicans. So we don't know at this point if even with the $46 billion, even with the crazy border money, if it's going to pass in the House. But for right now, let's focus on the Senate. There are, of course, we're going to focus on the border wall, but there are some other elements to this. Now, the bill would give legal status to most of the 11 million currently undocumented foreigners inside of the United States. It would lay out a path to citizenship that, assuming normal paperwork and things like that, should only take you maybe 75 years or so. So start early if you want to do that. But the $46 billion is what I want to focus on. Now, whether or not this will end up in the final version of the bill, we don't know currently. But I love that number, $46 billion over 10 years. Initially, the writers of the bill thought that $6.5 billion, that would be a good get for people who want border security. But no, let's blow it up by like 7 times. Now, some senators in particular are especially excited about the prospect of spending this $46 billion. And here I'm talking about Senator McCain. Let's hear what he's got to say.
I think that, first of all, the legislation concerning beefed up border security removes any validity to the argument that border security is not sufficient. I mean, this is not only sufficient, it is well over sufficient. We'll be the most militarized border since the fall of the Berlin Wall.
So I saw that early today, will be the most militarized border since the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I felt, oh, interesting, McCain's against this. No, he was saying that in a positive sense. He's excited about that. Look, I'm not going to give you a huge history lesson on what the Berlin Wall was or why it was felt at the time to be necessary, but the idea that the border between America and Mexico needs to be as militarized as the Berlin Wall, that is freaking insane. And by the way, could we bear in mind when it comes to the cost of these things, the Berlin Wall wasn't thousands of miles long. It was a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier to block off that territory at that point. And so we've got the $46 billion, we've got the 700-mile border fence, which, by the way, like, it's not going to be just a fence. It's multiple layers. The territory between the layers has to be bought, which is going to cost a crazy amount of money because all those landowners along those 700 miles, they are going to squeeze the government for as much money as they can possibly get. So this $46 billion we're talking about here, that very well might not be the final figure as well. And I just want to say that we're talking about immigration reform finally in this country, and this is what is felt to be necessary to get some Republicans to support it just in the Senate. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people who want nothing more than to become a part of America. We talk about the American dream in America, about how awesome it is to live here, the freedoms we have. And then we expect that nobody not living in the continental United States is supposed to be attracted to that. And just the idea that we want to ward off the illegal immigrants, as if immigration policy is totally like race neutral, country of origin neutral. No, we have quotas. We have historically said certain countries can send a certain number of people, certain countries can't. And that leads to the place that we're at with these 11 million undocumented foreigners. And by the way, the $46 billion, lest you believe that that is going to be all it takes to get this passed, no, we've got some representatives in the House. One in particular, John Fleming, who's a Tea Party activist. He says this in response to that $46 billion. He says that's pretty good. But then he says, our viewpoint is that we pass border security first, so that if anything comes to a vote in the House, it'll be that. This is what I love about attempting to bargain or negotiate with these crazy people. Even if you add an insane, stupid amount of money for border security that would allow one border agent for every 500 yards for most of the border of America and Mexico, that's not enough, because then they will take that and say, well, let's have that separate. Like every time Obama tried to get a couple of tax increases on the rich or something like that, and he'd throw in something the Republicans want, they're like, that's great, let's just vote on that. It is a futile effort to try to bargain with these people. And look, at this point, I don't want the bill to die because I feel like we have to make some headway on allowing a path for legalization for these millions of people in America. But really, if it dies, it's hurting those people, but also the Republican Party, because as we've said, the demographics are not in their favor, public opinion is not in their favor, and if they don't do anything to reform immigration policy in America, if they kill this bill and do so in an incredibly xenophobic and anti-Hispanic fashion, that is going to hurt them for years and possibly decades, possibly generations to come. And so I hope that we make some progress, possibly without the $46 billion, but at this point, if we don't, they're only really hurting themselves.